What's up? Tim and Katie, we're back. I'm so out of practice. It's scary. It does feel like we haven't done this in like 6 years.
2 weeks.
Even though
It comes up so fast.
We've been pretty consistent for the last, we took like 2 weeks off because we went on a trip, and then that's going to keep happening because we're going to keep going on trips, and somehow we'll have to muddle through. Welcome everyone to a Tim and Katie live stream. Happy Tuesday. Who have we got in? I see
got some people.
We've got Tim from Storming Thrills. I asked everyone if you're just getting here, we're going to be talking about long lost attractions tonight. So feel free to drop your favorite long lost but not forgotten attraction in the comments.
Volcano Vertical, that's the one we're talking about.
King's Dominion, right?
Dominion, yeah.
Unless there's, that could be the name of something else.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the volcanic vertical
was the one that had a really nice
the
volcano.
King's Dominion takes you up. That's one of the ones we talked about. It's not actually on our list tonight, but we debated adding it because that was one we were sad to lose.
Yep.
Toaster Mom, welcome.
Good evening.
We're always so glad to see you. Canyon River Rapids, that's a throwback.
Wow, I do remember that. I don't miss it too much because I'm not a huge fan of rapids rides. I do like
the
them.
hell you aren't.
I'm not, but they're not like my.
You're less a fan of them now after the Infinity Falls incident.
No, it's just sometimes
I do think that Canyon River Rapids added some kinetic energy to Hershey Park.
Yeah.
That it does. I feel like there's not enough.
The Rapids rides is a good ride to have in a theme park.
Yeah. But I never got a chance to ride Canyon River Rapids personally.
I'm sure you don't miss it.
I have forsaken the opportunity. Haley's in, great movie ride.
Yeah.
It was MGM Studios, and then that one actually survived the transition to Hollywood Studios, but not for much longer at Walt Disney World. Great movie ride is now Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway for all of you out there who might not be Disney fanatics, which is not a bad ride, but I do miss the Great Movie Ride. I think the Great Movie Ride was... That's just me, though. I'm an old head.
We might talk about it later.
Who
might.
Knows? Tim says it is King's Dominion he's referring to, and also wants us to remember Flying Falcon at Hershey Park. I feel like I just barely missed my chance to ride Flying Falcon because I was there when it was there. And I was, of age to ride it when it was there. I wasn't like a child, but I didn't ride it because how am I to know when an attraction is going to go away? I didn't know I'd be missing my opportunity.
Also, you weren't exactly
I wasn't a thrill seeker the way I was
yeah.
The way I am today when I was going earlier. Yeah, lots of good suggestions already. We got a lot to talk about tonight. But before we get started, as always, please do check out our socials. And also, as Tim pointed out, it really does help our stream if you can go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you like what you see. If you're not sure what you're seeing yet, stick around. You might like it. But in the meantime, please do check out our socials. The Real Tim and Katie on Instagram, Tim and Katie on Facebook, and timandkt.net. It is our website where we are desperately trying to bring it up to date with all the stuff we've been doing. It's kind of hard to do full-time YouTube, full-time 9-to-5s, of which we both have one, and then also keep up with all the socials and whatnot, but we're trying, guys. We're trying. And if you're following us on Instagram, you may have gotten a big trip announcement this week. I will not repeat it here because I want to drive people to Instagram. But eventually we will make that trip
Yeah.
announcement again for those of you who missed it. We are probably going to do a live stream on it when it gets closer. It's actually coming up pretty quick. We have a lot of fun trips planned this year. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So what we wanted to talk about tonight is, hold on, I've got notes and I forgot to pull them up. What we wanted to talk about tonight is lost attractions. I know, you wrote the note. I'm just using it. Attractions that have been near and dear to our hearts, that might have been near and dear to your hearts, that have kind of bitten the dust and been reborn as something else, or else just like been left as a husk, a tragic monument to what was and may never be again.
And some of these, to clarify, some of them we both got to enjoy before they were gone. Some of them only one of us got to enjoy.
Some of them neither of us
never
got to
enjoy them.
But we often look at the internet and think about what might have been.
So this definitely is not like a comprehensive list of attractions.
No, it's all subjective. It's all
literally
subjective.
There's probably some that are even more important to me that I just didn't think of in the last couple of days. So this is what we got.
I mean, we had a couple weeks to think this through, but like this is why we made like rankings are subjective to begin with, but why we did the top 10 is because there's always going to be like 6 to 8 things that we like walk up on and we're like, oh, this used to be that. I really wish we'd gotten a chance to be that. But these are the ones that like stick in our mind, that are perpetuated. Like, oh, I can't believe we missed that. It drives me nuts. It keeps me up at night. And a lot of these actually do. I'm very sad about missing some of them. What prompted this? If you guys are unfamiliar with the Central Florida news circuit, Poseidon's Fury at Universal is closing.
Islands of Adventures, walk through.
It was a walkthrough attraction. It is mostly standing, so I get, people, not everyone can enjoy it the same way. I know a lot of people in our immediate orbit who are not big fans of walkthrough attractions to begin with, so they were never fans of this attraction. I know people who only went for the first time after it was announced that it was closing, which we had actually been a couple times before it closed.
I will say, like, I got to enjoy this attraction the inaugural year of Islands of Adventure, when it had the original, I think much more scary show where Poseidon was actually the bad guy. Like, I literally remember being traumatized by this. So I got to see that, and the water tunnel. If you don't know what we're talking about,
there's POVs now.
Yeah, after
they're
after
not supposed to be, but
Poseidon's Fury water tunnel effect. It is a.
I think it's been replicated elsewhere now.
But I believe that was the first time that was executed.
That was monumental at the time.
I remember that. And I remember going back and doing it again. And when we went for our first trip together in 2020, we did do it. So we've done it.
But when we did it, the water tunnel was not working.
Right.
So I saw the water tunnel for the first time after the months-long refurb during the pandemic, when it just never came back online. And we all thought, oh, that's it. It's closed up. We'll never see it again. But it came back. And so the first thing we did when it came back was like, let's go and experience it again. Yeah. And we're glad we did, because not that much longer after that, they said, surprise again, it's actually closing permanently.
And it is the last glorious stand of
the Lost Continent.
Left of the Lost Continent area.
Except for Mythos. Restaurant.
Mythos is right across, or Mythos is right across the street, and
the fountain, Casbar.
Yes, Casbar. But as far as like an attraction goes, it's the last one.
Yeah.
So.
And I love the Lost Continent too, just for like putting it out there. Like, it's probably my favorite area of Islands of Adventure, which is controversial in and of itself because there's nothing there now except for Mythos and Casbar. But like, I just love the theming and the rock work. It just gets
music.
Me in the mood of like, I'm here for an adventure today.
Yeah. And
I don't think anything should replace that theming. There have been for years, but now like they're in full flight, like rumors flying back and forth at high speed. There are rumors that a Legend of Zelda attraction is going to come down and replace Poseidon's Fury, and they're going to use kind of the same facade, which would work perfectly for the Legend of Zelda. I really don't want them to tear this down. I cannot articulate in words how much I don't want them to tear this down.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm gonna miss the way this looks probably even more than the attraction itself on the inside, which is fun. And if you live in Florida and haven't done it yet, try
But
it.
that's what I'm saying. They might not have to.
Yeah.
They might. I'm not saying they're going to tear everything down. The rumor is that if you never played a Legend of Zelda game, it fits perfectly.
I think it does. I just can't imagine them leaving it exactly like that.
No, I think they're probably going to carve some Hyrulean glyphs
like
into.
They're not going to leave like whatever crest that is at the top there. They're going to have to put something in more.
I mean, that's a Cthulhu-looking crest to begin with.
Like
it doesn't quite work as Poseidon, but yeah. Anyway, we love this attraction. We were sad to hear that it was going down, but we did get to do it one last time. And if you haven't done it yet, you have 7 days to do it. You have exactly a week from today, May 9th. It is shutting down for good, and all the final shows will be taking place on that date. I'm sure it's going to be slammed that day, so I would try to get there.
Everyone's going to try to be the last tour through.
Yeah.
So.
And it's Central Florida, so like anytime something closes or opens, it's a madhouse.
Anyway.
But that prompted our thinking about like, man, this is just one more thing that we're really going to miss. And as you get older, more and more that's going to happen, especially if you're a theme parker or a coaster enthusiast. Like, rides degrade, attractions degrade, and they either have to be continually maintenance, which gets more and more expensive, or they get torn down and replaced with something else. So in addition to talking about like all the different things that are gone now, we're also going to be talking about the things that replaced them, and kind of cherry picking the things that we think might have been better before they were replaced, ? But we definitely we wanted to walk down memory lane with you guys on this, because I know everyone who watches these live streams, few and far between are you, but thank you for joining us. You all are on the same page about like what these theme parks mean to us and what they mean to you. And so it seemed like a great topic to get some conversation going. Maybe stir up some controversy too.
Yeah.
Before all that, Tim brought up your shirt.
It is a Dueling Dragon shirt. Fire and Ice.
Fire and Ice.
That
was actually sold at Universal.
This is for sale in like a little
month ago.
pop-up shop full of like old like Merlin wood kind of themed shirts and
it's over by the kebabs.
Yeah, it is over by the kebabs. So yeah, I saw someone else wearing it, and I was like, "Is that a Dueling Dragon shirt?" Tell me where I could find it.
Same reaction Tim just gave us. Someone else, Katie gave that reaction to somebody she passed by, and she was like, "Whoa! Is that a Dueling Dragon shirt?" And he was like, "It is." And you can find them right. It's almost like it's hidden, like it's a secret.
It's definitely.
You got to know where it is.
Like
but
anything on like social media about it.
Yeah, it was a very recent purchase. They are still selling Dueling Dragons merch, which kind of, I always feel like Universal does a great job of like embracing what was there, and Disney does too, to an extent. A lot of the things we're going to be talking about tonight are Disney and Universal attractions, not all, but we grew up on Disney and Universal, so like these are the places that we remember being and the rides we remember being on. And I feel like Universal and Disney both, like they have ways of kind of immortalizing the previous attraction. Like Mr. Toad is still handing the deed to Owl in the Winnie the Pooh attraction, the Magic Kingdom.
I learned
where it used to be Mr. Toad's
this
Wild
year
Ride.
through TikTok that some heads from the Country Bear Jamboree are in the Winnie the Pooh attraction in Disneyland if you turn around at the right time, which I still haven't.
Heads?
Yeah, the heads. Like it's like a moose head, and I've told you.
I thought you meant like decapitated bears.
I mean, they are decapitated animals. They're stuffed, they're taxidermy heads from Country. I don't know much about Country Bear Jamboree, to be honest. I kind of tried to like block it from my memory. Anyway.
And then the movie came out and it became that much harder.
Oh, gosh. I also want to block that movie out from my memory.
So we're going to start by rolling into things we did experience and we miss. Like things that we had the wherewithal to know what we're missing because we rode them, experienced them, walked through them, saw them, etc., versus things that we've never even been on.
Yeah.
And again, this is not going to apply for like Tim and Katie both 100%. Katie's been on some things that I haven't. I've been on some things that she hasn't. We know to miss the other's experiences. Yeah. So, we tried to sort these in order.
I believe my notes are in order.
There's not going to be exactly 10. I will tell you that too. There's some bonuses, but I'll start
Who
with.
knows what this is?
I'll start with this one where I have like vivid memories of being up on top of that ant, and sliding down a roll of rubberized Kodak film that had been supersized. If you don't know what this is,
it wasn't supersized. We were shrunk.
It's true. It's true. The Kodak film was regular size.
And
We were very small.
we were shrunk.
So, if you're unfamiliar with what this is, my heart goes out to you. This was my childhood in Walt Disney World. This was at what was then MGM Studios, is now Disney's Hollywood Studios. And this was the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie set adventure.
I really did not know that was what it was actually called.
Neither did I.
I always
until
knew
I
it was Honey, I Shrunk
the Honey,
the Kids.
I Shrunk the Kids playground. That's what I called it. That's what my parents call it. That's what I grew up calling it. But that's not actually what it was actually called. Was the movie set adventure.
No.
So basically, what you're seeing here is a playground, but it's been very heavily themed, like to the extent where you wouldn't know it was a playground unless someone hit you on the head and told you. But kids know because they come running in and they're like, "Ooh, a little ant tunnel to crawl through. I'm on it." And that's exactly what I did. And I do remember, as I said, like vividly, I remember sliding down that roll of Kodak film because that was like, I clambered up the side of the roll and then I got inside the roll and then I slid down the center of the roll and out around like an outstretched bank of film. And that was the coolest slide I've ever been on in my life.
This is probably
It's been 33 years. I've never topped it.
a top playground experience.
This had to go because Honey, I Shrunk the Kids wasn't going to be forever popular. It's still iconic in and of itself, but more and more you're seeing like fewer and fewer people who know what Honey, I Shrunk the Kids because I guess there was a sequel, there was a spin-off TV series that I grew up watching. I tried to get you into it, but we fell off a little bit and forgot about it.
I was into it. We just got caught up in other things.
Peter Scolari, I think. He only just recently passed away too, and we were just watching him as Wayne Selinsky in the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids series.
Yeah.
Anyway, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was wildly popular when we were kids.
Yep.
It stopped being quite as popular as we got older. So you can kind of see how something like this would become less and less relevant to an aging demographic. Because the people that really enjoyed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, as much as I would love to get on the again and would absolutely do it if I could go back in time and had the chance, it's probably frowned upon to have an entire playground full of adults. While the kids sit on the side watching or playing with their phones.
This opened in 1990. It closed in 2016 to make room for guess what? We'll tell you. I'll tell you that in a minute. I feel like it actually had quite a bit of longevity because honestly, like I don't think you needed to know what this was to enjoy it. Like I would, as a kid, I'd walk up and see like giant ant, giant paperclip, and just think, this is so cool. This is amazing. Like I don't need to.
This is the apex of my childhood.
I don't need to have known that it was from a particular scene in a movie to enjoy it. But I think what happened was it took up a lot of real estate, and real estate that was needed for Galaxy's Edge. Yeah.
Let me say too, we're not diehard Star Wars fans. We're casual Star Wars fans. I like all of the mainline movies and that's it. I don't read any of the books. I don't build my own lightsabers. I don't follow Lego Star Wars or play any of the video games. Yeah, it's literally like, I know there's a whole, we do that with Marvel. Like we're big on Marvel, but we're not as big on Star Wars. And I think that's fine because we can still appreciate Galaxy's Edge as what it is. But did we need two of them that are identical on both coasts? Probably not.
Still
Did it need to wipe out Honey, I Shrunk the Kids playground? Probably not. But it is more culturally relevant than what was torn up to put it in.
I mean, I could have a whole live stream on my feelings on Galaxy's Edge in general, so I won't get into that. But I will say that I understand that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like Tim said, there was nothing keeping it relevant.
It had degrading popularity.
And also, as fun as I do love that theme parks do have these, kids parks or whatever to play in. First of all, there's no line usually to go and play on them. It gives parents a second to sit down, maybe in the shade even. Kids can get more steam off, and they're usually like pretty fun and cool to look at. So I like areas like this.
I didn't realize it survived until 2016, to be honest. I thought it was gone and way earlier than that. Yeah. I would have gone and done something about it when I was there in 2008 if I'd thought it through, but I don't know.
Well.
Never occurred.
We will miss you. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids
Honey,
movie
I
set
Shrunk the Kids
adventure.
movie set adventure, which maybe that was why it was closed. It was just too hard to say. So we don't have Poseidon's Fury on this list because we've already kind of given our blessing for it to be put away. But we do have something else from the Lost Continent on this list. And this is one that I've not experienced, but Katie has. Our number 9 is The Eighth Voyage of Sinbad. It should have been number 8. Why didn't we make it number 8?
Because I don't miss it as much as some other ones. I mean, honestly, the list I sent you was in no particular order, but I think you put it in an order.
I put it in an order, but only because...
Anyway, this is a stunt show, stage show that opened with Islands of Adventure in 1999. I remember seeing it when I went for the very first time in 1999, and every time I went to Universal Islands after. So it is nostalgic for me. I understand maybe not everyone misses it. It was pretty cheesy. The acting wasn't spectacular, but I remember some cool stunts, fun music, and it was nice to get out of the sun, sit in the shade, sit down for a bit, and enjoy like a 20-minute show that I thought was entertaining.
I mean, the theater is still there,
yes.
And like all the props are still there. Like
yes.
if occasionally you'll get drafted into overflow for Hagrid's if you get there too early in the morning or too late in the morning and you want to join that line, and they'll run you around and through the back of the Sinbad Theater,
right.
And you can see all the sets that are like basically untouched.
Yep.
Now, I can't imagine they're not going to do something with that space because a lot of these things have been kind of already paved over and, you know, reconstructed to have a new attraction in their place. Universal are big time advanced planners, right? They've got three new theme parks in development right now. There is no way that they've left this show closed unceremoniously, basically
Since
just saying canceling it. Since 2018, we've just never touched it. Now we're closing Poseidon's Fury, and guess what? Those two attractions connect at the back.
They're right next to each other.
They're right next to you. They don't look like that when you're rolling around the park, but they are literally like two buildings right next to each other. So if Poseidon's Fury is going and this one's not coming back, something big is coming to replace it.
So I do miss this show. I don't think there's really not anything like it in terms of a show in Islands right now. You do have, you know, occasional performers over in Wizarding World of Harry Potter, but nothing quite like this. I don't know if they're going to keep it as stage, if it becomes another Zelda attraction. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they do like a Zelda stage show or something.
No, I think it's all going to be one. I think they're going to kill this theater altogether and it's all going to be one big... Based on the rumors that are floating around, and by the way, these are just rumors. We don't know anything, but I will be furious if they're not true. If they replace it with more minions somehow, I'm going to lose my mind.
Honestly, I don't even think I want like another Harry Potter expansion because I think
I don't think there's any plans to do that. Because they talked about adding a new Harry Potter attraction to studios, like the VR over by the... where the facade is for the houses and whatnot, but I don't think they're planned with Epic Universe coming and the Fantastic Beasts set, not necessarily the actual time period of the universe.
There's Wizarding World all over.
There's enough Wizarding World to keep people driving back and forth between the parks. That's all.
I don't think they need to do more.
I think it's gonna be based on what we've seen patent-wise and what rumors are flying back and forth. I am throwing my weight behind the theory that this is all going to be one large attraction. It's going to be a boat ride of sorts, but it's going to have the mock ride boat mechanics.
Tangled boat ride.
That will not just they'll turn and they'll twist and they'll show you story scenes, but then they'll also like pick you up and you'll be able to fly on the boats halfway through the ride, which would be the dopest thing that Universal has ever done. I will accept nothing less. Universal, listen well. I will accept nothing less. So that's Sinbad. Tragically, never to sail again, but he will live on in the form of the animated DreamWorks movie that I really enjoy.
Also, the one ride in Tokyo.
Oh yeah, but that's at Disney. That's a Disney ride. That's not a Universal ride. No. Strange how licensing works between.
Well, continents. I think Sinbad as a character is kind of like not copyrighted. Also,
Public
this
domain.
version of Sinbad had a D. I don't know if that's always the case because it's Sindbad.
Sinbad?
Sindbad.
Like Sind real bad?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Looks
But I
pretty
mean,
happy for a
Sinbad
guy
is
who
kind
sinned
of
real
like,
bad.
isn't he kind of like, he's like King Arthur, like he's kind of public domain. He's kind of a legendary character.
Well, you gotta kind of figure like Winnie the Pooh too, just entered public domain, but it's the A. Milne version of Winnie the Pooh. It's not like Disney's version of Winnie the Pooh. Disney still has character likeness rights for that version of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
So depending on who owns what version of Sinbad. Anyway, this is an academic discussion. So
moving on.
This one I think will get some of the coaster enthusiasts. There's a reason Katie chose the shirt she did. So I never got to ride Dueling Dragons, but this is the weirdest thing. I had never been to Universal prior to 2020, but I've often, you know how like sometimes when you have dreams, like you dream of an alternate version of things as they are currently, but it feels very real and vivid to you. So like as soon as I saw this screenshot, which I grabbed for our presentation, I was like, this is what I dream about when I think of Universal in my sleep. Well, like this is the version of Universal that I see, even though I've literally never seen it. So it has permeated somehow.
Well, this was probably my one, which is funny. It's like my favorite ride in Islands of Adventure
was replaced by your favorite ride in Islands of Adventure.
So for those who may not know or need to be memory needs to be jogged, Dueling Dragons was a dueling B&M inverted roller coaster in what is now the Wizarding World of Harry Potter area. It was originally Merlinwood, which was very like magical, which is funny that it was replaced by another, wizarding kind of area. But these were
more arguments for Zelda.
These were dueling inverted coasters. So that means in their original concept, they launched at the same time, had several near miss moments that were just awesome. I remember I've done both sides. I did them both several times. I think Tim at some point, Storming Thrills, Tim said he thought that Ice Side was better. I know, I can't remember. One of them was like 5 miles faster than the other, just how physics works. So there was one that was faster, but I can't remember whether it was fire or ice.
But not like super noticeably so.
No. I mean, the B&M inverts don't get much above like a 58 mile per hour speed because that's just how they're built. But I mean, if you know how much like a B&M invert like roars, it just fit for this dragon theme so much.
It was this the Great Bear of Universal.
Is amazing. The ride, it was just a ton of fun. It opened in 1999 with the park, when the park opened, so it was an original ride. It was rebranded to Dragon Challenge when the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opened in 2010 with a different facade that's more reminiscent of what it looks like now. And honestly, I feel like that's the only thing about Hagrid's that I'm kind of disappointed in. I just feel like this was so cool. And the rest of Hagrid's queue is really good, but like and I know it's supposed to be like you're entering like the castle ruins or whatever, but it doesn't beat this. And that's why I love this shirt, because I feel like it's reminiscent of the facade of the gate to open. So unfortunately, Dueling Dragons is not without some unfortunate history.
Keeping up in Disney's.
Hello, welcome. We
just want to throw that in before we turn to tragedy.
Oh, and Tim reminded me of something else. They did keep, of course, both coasters up. So it was, I think, a Hungarian horntail and a Chinese fireball dragon. I want to say, I don't remember which side was which. So Tim might be right there. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the ride and the close, near misses, I believe they're called in the industry.
Designed to be so.
People who had items in their pockets or were carrying loose items, unfortunately, there were at least 2 incidences where something, loose change, fell out of someone's pocket and struck someone on the coaster on the other side during those moments. And it did result in some pretty severe injuries. Unfortunately, I won't get into detail. I don't want to get too graphic on this thing, but yeah, interactions, it's an even better word for it. So unfortunately, they stopped dueling after a while when Dragon Challenge opened again. And really that took away from what made this ride so special. If you're not dueling anymore, it's not really dueling dragons. It's not really, those interactions are gone. And eventually, I think they still thought the ride was probably going to be too much of a liability with those coasters being so close to each other. And I think that's why in the end they decided to
and if you
take the ride down in favor of Hagrid's. And I do agree with that, and I definitely don't want more injuries to happen. And this was happening even despite installing things like what are they, security, like metal detectors.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, if you think about it, that's why Velocicoaster is designed the way it is, with the security on the inside instead of on the outside. It's like right before you board. Yeah. And also, that's why a lot of people were really bummed about this, as was I, because it really, if everyone pulled their weight and were actually following the rules, it wouldn't be necessary. But enough people were known to have broken rules on like boarding rides with prohibited items at Universal that they had to build a little grid fence around the bridge, the bypass bridge that takes you into Jurassic Park from Hogsmeade. And that did kind of take away from like the sight line of the Velocicoaster and vice versa. Yeah. This is why. Like, this is exactly why, because they had this prior experience with Dueling Dragons, and looking at the history of that attraction and things that were already starting to kind of like rear their ugly head, so to speak, on Velocicoaster, the same old problems over again. Yeah. That's why they were like, no, we're not taking any chances.
A lot faster than this.
It does, yeah.
So anyway, this is my love note to Dueling Dragons. It was a great ride. And I do think that the coasters that they're building in Epic Universe is kind of an ode to Dueling Dragons, because they're both, I don't know if they're meant to be launched at the same time.
They are, but they're not supposedly going to come head to head the way the Dueling Dragons are.
I think they're racing coasters. They're interacting more parallel than those near misses and stuff like that. So I do think it's an ode to that. So I'm really excited to ride that spiritual successor to Dueling Dragons. Anyway, this has been my TED Talk on Dueling Dragons. R.I.P., but you were replaced by Hagrid's.
One love, gone but not forgotten.
It was replaced by Hagrid's, which is a fantastic ride, and I could do a whole live stream on why I love that ride.
And that's, this is the first attraction so far where I've been like, what they've replaced it with is better.
It's a good success.
But I would have enjoyed being able to ride this one. When you get your ride in on whatever, and you're like, I've gone on that ride 70 times, and I really, really like it, but you're not entirely sad to see it go because you have to love it to miss it.
Yeah.
So I think like Dueling Dragons was well loved, and it is missed by many. But I also think that Hagrid's is probably more well loved. I think it was probably a good call to use the space for what they did.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And in case you don't know, when you're in the Hagrid's queue, make sure to look at the wall when you first get into the castle with the nest in the ceiling. You'll see a mural that is depicting a red and a blue dragon, and it says Dueling Club at the top, and it's definitely that subtle nod to Dueling Dragons.
Universal, bringing the magic. All right,
next one.
We had this actually a lot. Well, somebody submitted Great Movie Ride on our poll earlier today.
Yes.
Let's see who it is.
And I think Kaylee mentioned it in the comments already on the live stream.
Yeah, you're right. Great Movie Ride. Yep, you were correct. So, Great Movie Ride is one that I have been on and Katie has not.
I really don't remember doing it. If I did, I might as well not have done it.
Yeah, she might have done it, but it was not deliberative. So.
Yeah, when I went with my family in the 90s, I don't think we went to MGM. But anyway, if I don't remember it, I might as well not have done it. So
the licensing alone to get this attraction to be what it was would have had to have cost Disney an absolute fortune. And it perpetuated for like year over year over year. And I'm sure part of why they ultimately closed this ride down was because of the significant investment they would have had to make in licensing rights every year.
I think
But
they had a deal with Turner Classic Movies.
They
and
did.
MGM.
They did. That's
So-
that's irrelevant though, because movie rights have changed hands so many times.
Yeah, but I think it was also the dissolving relationship with MGM and it becoming Hollywood Studios that put the what's the word I'm thinking of? Ticking time bomb on Great Movie Ride.
The Great Movie Ride, if you're unfamiliar, if you never got to experience it, you would go and you would sit in an old theater, and it was the Hollywood theater, like it is the Chinese theater in Hollywood Studios as it is now. The facade is basically unchanged, except for that now it has Mickey and Minnie on the sign out front. But you would go inside the Chinese theater, you would sit in old, they looked like benches, like they were not, you know, comfortable, like seat down movie chairs. Like even the Muppet Studios would probably have a leg up on what you had to sit in. But you'd understand why, because as the show progressed, the seats actually became ride vehicles, and they would break apart and they moved you into the screen, and then they would take you through each movie set from all of the like classic hits of everything from Singing in the Rain, Gone with the Wind, Mary Poppins, Alien with Sigourney Weaver. That horror movie was in, and it was so cool, and there will never be anything quite like it unless someone buys out the movie rights to Alien. But I think that's probably, I mean, in today's world that would just be a screen ride.
It would be.
So I do miss this attraction a lot, and it also had a human element, because you would start as a, what's it called, not the concierge, but like the ticket people.
Yeah, at the movies, box office person.
Ushers.
Yeah,
it would be the usher would be your guide as you started going through the experience, and then halfway through you'd enter a set that was like old-timey like mobster set, and then a mobster would come in and take over and boot the usher off. Then the mobster would go through like 3 or 4 scenes with you, go through the Wizard of Oz, and then you'd hit Indiana Jones, and the mobster would see gold, and he would be like, oh, I'm gonna get me some of that gold. And then like a pharaoh or a mummy would come down and take his place, and then they would guide you through. Like, it was so cool, and it really made you feel like you were in the movies and you were experiencing like the glory days of movies. And even as a kid, some parts, admittedly, as a child, like a small kid, I was scared of Alien and the Xenomorph, and even the Indiana Jones scene with like all the King Cobras and whatnot. Like, it's a little bit freaky and intimidating, but as like an adult, this was like the highlight of MGM Studios. There was nothing at Disney World that was quite like this. Now it's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, of which there is a lot just like that, because now there's one exact clone on the other side of the country, and also there's many screen rides
really
that kind of do the trackless
like
thing.
Burns me, because first of all, like,
it fits better in Toontown.
So much better in Toontown.
It does.
Than it does in Hollywood Studios. And I don't hot take, I don't think it was a good spiritual successor to the Great Movie Ride.
I don't think it was either. That's not exactly a hot take.
And also they had to do like the most hideous version of Mickey and Minnie too, the new style animation that I did not like. I did not grow up with. No one did, because it's only been a couple of years.
And the funny thing is, they haven't even continued to leverage those character designs. Like, every time you see like the anniversary merch or whatever, it's always the 90s era, like the Renaissance Mickey and Minnie, or like
make a costume that looks like that for Mickey.
I mean, it would be very disproportionate.
It would be horrific. Glad you got to ride it.
Yeah, so the Great Movie Ride did close in 2017, which is, it stuck around a lot longer than I thought it did.
I think it was also like it was not doing, first of all, there were so many animatronics in there. It was kind of at the state of where like Spaceship Earth is now, where I don't think they can keep up with the amount of attention that it needed. Mm-hmm. And then it also, that human element that Tim was talking about with like the different tour guides, I think they were peeling that back a bit, and it wasn't as interactive as it used to be too. So
yeah, this is definitely one where we feel like what replaced it was not as good as what was there. But we still ride Mickey and Minnie.
Yeah.
Like, we never don't ride Mickey and Minnie when we're at Hollywood Studios, unless we're in a real rush to do Tower of Terror 70 times.
If I just want to ride Tower of Terror, that's the best ride there.
But this is one of the most unique attractions that the world will never see again. Like, this is not being well. There are kind of knockoffs all over the world at other theme parks, but they're not done anywhere near as well, and they don't have the same. Well, they certainly don't have the licensing to use the IPs that Disney did at the time, but they also just don't have the same like care and sincerity put into set building and all of that. Like, this was a walk down memory lane, and memory lane itself has now been peeled away from Hollywood Studios.
I think this one still hurts.
This one hurts the
and
most.
Probably will hurt for a while.
But
I think we're on our last.
We're on our last thing.
We've experienced.
This one hurts you a little bit more than it does me.
It hurts me. It also just gives me warm fuzzy feelings.
So if this looks vaguely familiar to you, wait for Katie to explain it, because you might start having flashbacks from your childhood that you didn't even know were embedded in your head.
So this is Legend of the Lion King, which opened in Magic Kingdom in 1994 and was closed in 2003. It was it's a puppet show, but I feel like it was so much more than puppets. These were like life-size, very realistic for, a cartoon versions of the beloved characters from The Lion King.
I mean, they're exactly as realistic as the current puppets at Festival.
Yeah, they do. If you've seen
Simba's
Festival
almost identical.
Yeah, if you've seen like Simba and Pumbaa from the Festival of the Lion King, which this is no dig on Festival of the Lion King. I love Festival of the Lion King. I hope it never goes away. I think it's wonderful. But this was like a retelling in like 25 minutes or less of the Lion King movie with puppets. There were, lights. I don't think necessarily pyrotechnics, but definitely like fog effects. I remember being totally scared of Scar, as I was in the movie too, for Be Prepared.
Be prepared.
And this was in the same theater that Mickey's PhilharMagic is now. In fact, it was replaced by Mickey's PhilharMagic in 2003. Or 2004, whenever it actually opened, and after this it closed, because it would take some time to peel all this back. But there were real sets. I just think it was a beautiful show. If you can find someone's like camcorder version of it on YouTube, give it a watch. Legend of the Lion King. I definitely will miss it. It was ingrained into my memory of my first Disney trip, and I wish I had gotten to see it one more time, but I didn't even realize when I came back as a young-ish teenager that Mickey's PhilharMagic had even replaced it.
See, this had been like completely wiped from my mind as ever having existed. And Katie started talking to me the other day when we were bringing up like these lost things. She was like, there was a Lion King version that had like puppets that was like Finding Nemo, but like better. And I was like, what? No, you're talking about Festival of the Lion King. She was like, no, it wasn't Festival of the Lion King. It was actual puppets for the whole show.
I was concerned when I couldn't find it like immediately that
it was like a fever dream.
I did make this up, but it existed, and I'm glad that it did.
It was a real thing, and there is footage of it. Like, we had to do some digging. The amount of trouble that we went to just to find this picture is obscene to me.
And there's no like good quality pictures.
No, this is it. This is all you got.
Yeah.
But it does, like, some people have uploaded like it's VHS tape conversions over to digital. That's how old it was. But it is on YouTube, so you do have to check it out. I was gonna say, Jamie and Ari just posted their Animal Kingdom vlog from their recent Disney trip, Keeping Up in Disney. So we knew this was going to resonate with you guys.
Yeah. I loved that. That seemed like the best Animal Kingdom day, which is like my favorite kind of day.
Yeah.
I will say, I think the reason why this show didn't last as long as maybe it could have, it was a little less than 10 years, was because Animal Kingdom opened up. And I think a lot of Lion King property and ideas went to Animal Kingdom, which it makes sense for it to be there.
Well, the Tree of Life is the icon of the park.
Yes. So
if anything, it makes no sense at all that A Bug's Life is inside the Tree of Life. It should be a Lion King show just like this. But
it didn't really make sense for, I guess, a Lion King show to be Fantasyland attraction, and the movie had come out, and it was, I guess, done promotion for the movie and things like that. So I think it was okay that I wish it had gotten new life in Animal Kingdom maybe, but then we probably wouldn't have both that and Festival of the Lion King. So, but anyway, it was. I'm grateful for my memories of it for certain.
I mean, there's obviously an audience for something like this if they were to do what an off-Broadway team has done with Winnie the Pooh and just bring a stage production to life like this using similar puppets.
I mean, I love the Lion King Broadway show, so I don't know if we would need like that necessarily.
I'm not talking about that though. I'm talking about like this kind of like, it's a different kind of art.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's the same mentality as the live action movies, which we're not huge fans of because they're typically without creative input and they're just like shot for shot remakes of the animated, but with live
action Lion King.
But if they were to do something like this with puppets, I think they would be the audience for that, and it would be the same audience that goes to the Broadway show, the Broadway performances. But
yeah,
I don't know. The time may have come and gone. So, with that fever dream behind us, these are our top 5 attractions that we never experienced. Like, between the two of us, neither of us has experienced any of these attractions. They're all things that we wish we had gotten a chance to do, that we would probably trade our left arms to try and do in most cases.
Yeah.
Not all, but most. So, let's roll right in with this one. It's hard to find.
I was like, "What is this picture?"
And then hard to find art of the Terminator 3D show because you weren't allowed to take pictures. So everything's from the outside.
The show is Terminator 2, 3D Battle Across Time, or it was shortened to T2 3D or Terminator 2 3D sometimes.
This was the concept art that was brought in as the blue sky pitch for Universal Creative. So this is what you have to represent, and this may or may not be what the show actually turned out to be.
I don't think it was. I think it's reminiscent, but
I do see what replaced this. Not to jump ahead, but what replaced this was the Born Stuntacular, which we both think is a really cool show. Yeah. And this is that theater. Like I see all the same stage presences that the Born Stuntacular utilizes, so I can totally see how this would be previous location for Terminator.
Yeah.
Like I see how all the pieces fit together, if that makes sense.
But this show I watched, I don't know if it was a theme park defunct land or a Sam Expedition, Expedition theme park video, but I watched something that gave the history of Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time, and I was like, oh man. And it was after I had seen Born Stuntacular. It's like, man, this show looked really good. And as a child, honestly, I never went to Universal Studios. We always went to Islands. I don't blame my cousins. They never took us to studios. I never went to studios until 2020. But I would have loved to have seen this, especially since I was as a teenager, I watched like Terminator 1 and 2 at least a couple of times.
I was going to say, I didn't think I'd taken you through the Terminator movies as adults. I think that was something you...
I saw 1 and 2. I don't know which ones I saw with you, but I saw 1 and 2.
I don't think you've seen any of them with me.
Okay. Anyway.
I saw everything about Terminator that I saw in college. Like I didn't see any of that until I was a full-grown adult. So it was much easier for me to get behind like the gritty sci-fi elements.
But this was, and I have my feelings about James Cameron anyway, but this was a collaboration with James Cameron. It basically, he said it is the sequel to Terminator 2. It's like a 25-minute sequel. It was filmed on a Hollywood budget with, I believe, the actors from Terminator. I can't remember the name of
2.
Yeah, I mean, no, Arnold Schwarzenegger. What's the woman's name from Terminator?
Which one?
The mom.
Sarah Connor?
Sarah Connor, yeah. Anyway, the actors who played... I don't remember her name. Do you remember her name?
The Sarah Connor Chronicles doesn't ring a bell.
I can't... Look.
It's sitting on our shelf. Walk out there. It's sitting on the shelf.
This is not the time. This is not the time. Anyway, those actors came back. James Cameron came back to direct it. And then, there were stunt actors who were not those actors, but they had their faces covered up or something. So for all you know, they were the same people. Anyway, it looked really cool. Check out a video of it online if you never got to see it. If you did get to see it, let us know and let us know if you liked it. I think it just looked like a really cool stunt show. The effects were really amazing for their time. It was there from 1996 and closed in 2017. I think it was probably really expensive. I'm sure with the Stuntacular, it's not like that's inexpensive.
I was gonna say, I think it's more expensive, but because it is like repeatable sets, like there's not a whole lot of pyrotechnics in the Stuntacular show.
No,
there's not a whole lot of
it's
like
a lot of illusions.
one-time burn assets.
Yeah, it's a lot of illusions on like screens, which is cool, and also real people doing real stunts. But anyway, would have liked to have seen this. I remember seeing previews for it. Do you remember seeing like previews for it on TV?
Yeah, on like 90s television.
Yeah, like oh gosh,
But I wasn't a Terminator fan when I saw those previews.
No,
on
I was
TV,
probably
so
super
I was
scared
like,
of it.
it didn't make any sense to me. Well, it did, but like in a foreign sense. Like I saw it and I was like, oh, those are that Terminator stuff that my friends keep talking about. All right, well, back to Pokemon now.
Yeah. Anyway.
Also, this is my one chance to plug this one fun fact about us. We live in Maryland, where the next actor playing Jason Bourne in the Stuntacular has just been hired from. So the next time you see Jason Bourne on stage, it was also a member of the DC Stunt Coalition.
Oh, no way!
Yeah. Next time you see Jason Bourne at the Stuntacular, which replaced the Terminator ride, just know,
Terminator.
Born and raised in Maryland.
Woo-hoo. Crabs in Old Bay.
Yeah.
You weren't born here.
I was not. I was not. Okay.
We don't discuss that.
So this next one, I'm pretty sure this one is one that hurts us both.
Yes.
Big Bad Wolf. I told you a lot of these were coming from Disney and Universal, but this one is not. This one is from Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, which is a park that has rather recently become near and dear to our hearts, and is actually like we've succumbed to doing day trips to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, which
is like a 3.5 hour ride.
It amounts to 7 hours on the road in a single day, just to like get out there sometimes, because that is how much we love this park.
Yeah. And our first time we ever visited was 2021.
So this was already gone.
So this was long gone.
This ride, you might, if you've seen any of our other vlogs, or if you know Busch Gardens, Williamsburg and the terrain, and you've never heard of this ride, you may still recognize the supports and the layout of this track. This was replaced by Verbolten, which is one of our favorite rides of the park. I'm not always in a Verbolten mood because it does have its own way of impacting you with G's, and I won't ruin any of the fun elements of the ride because they do have to be experienced to be believed. But this was a very unique coaster credit, and the more that I look at what used to be there, Big Bad Wolf and all of that, the more I'm like, oh, I really thought Verbolten was super well themed until I saw Big Bad Wolf. Like, it took you through a forest, up a waterfall, through a little, like, what's it called? Transylvanian looking village.
Yeah,
like it was so
and it was
cool.
Definitely meant to be, I think it was definitely meant to be tied with Curse of Dark Castle.
Yeah. It was so well themed. And I honestly, like, when I heard about Big Bad Wolf, I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't know why they would name a bucket ride that. I call them bucket rides, but Tim is right. They are arrow suspended. Yeah. There are very few of these kind of coasters left.
I can't confirm if it was the first, but it
was one of the last.
It may be the first, because the only other one I know that still is
Magic Mountain.
Is Magic Mountain.
But this one was operating until 2009.
To open in 1984.
It just barely didn't make our have experience, because I didn't go to Busch Gardens Williamsburg until probably I was a teenager when I went the first time, and then after that we went in 2021.
Just learning for the first time that you'd been to Busch Gardens Williamsburg
before? As a kid. Been to Hershey Park as a kid too.
I knew that. I didn't know you went to Busch Gardens as a kid.
I mean, it was a place to go as a kid when there weren't many places. We went down to King's Dominion. We were going to go the rest of the way to Busch Gardens. But I'll tell you about King's Dominion. Something that literally just occurred to me that's not on this list is the Yogi Bear house, where it had all slanted floors. It was like a madhouse or like a fun house that you had to walk through, but it was themed to Yogi. That is embedded in my head. Anyway, Big Bad Wolf. Total non sequitur. Big Bad Wolf. This attraction is sorely missed by anyone who's been a fan of Busch Gardens Williamsburg for a long time. It did fit very well, as Katie said, with the Curse of Dark Castle, which was just around the corner. It was a dark ride. And they're doing, I think, a pretty good job of continuing to theme the area around what was there and what is there now, which is something that I've really grown to appreciate about Busch Gardens and SeaWorld parks. Like, they really try hard to weave a narrative into their IPs, their own individual IPs that they develop. They wind narratives around them and they make you part of the story, which is something that Disney and Universal have kind of had a lock on for a while, and not many other parks do. This park in particular, but all the SeaWorld parks and Busch Gardens parks that we've been to so far, they're really, really good at putting the pieces together and making you feel like you're a part of something bigger than just this one ride experience. Big Bad Wolf, I think, had the superior layout as compared to Verbolten.
Yeah, well,
the track is largely the same, but the actual
Verbolten takes you into like a spaghetti roll inside area.
Yeah.
So while it's fun, it doesn't have the scenic layout that Big Bad Wolf did. So.
And I think there are sparing POVs of Big Bad Wolf out there because Busch Gardens, bless them, have always been pretty keen on allowing you to take on-ride video as long as you had an approved harness or a mount. So we always when we go up there, we have to get a camera card so that we can prove that we've had our mount inspected. And then as soon as they see that, we can get on the ride with whatever we're wearing camera-wise. But definitely you need to check this one out because it's historic, but it's also it's just a fun ride to watch the POV.
A lot of fun.
I really regret not making it out there in time to experience it. Or if I had been there when it was there, I didn't ride it, and it will always hurt me that I didn't ride it. Verbolten is fun though.
And it is. I think it's a nice successor. I think it's a better successor than Mickey and Minnie.
It doesn't do as much internal damage as Mickey and Minnie's does to us.
And like Tim said, it definitely plays homage to Big Bad Wolf. So yeah, but
we're actually staying in Busch Gardens for the next one, which is why I did it that way.
Right in the same area. Can you guess what we're talking about next?
So this month. Dang, I was about to say this season,
weeks.
in a couple of weeks. This ride, as pictured, is the Curse of Dark Castle, which was a dark ride at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Same area as Big Bad Wolf, but a little bit more technologically advanced. Now, it was a ride that had a very low capacity, and it was a ride that required a significant ongoing investment because it had so many effects, animatronics, screens.
I did not realize until a few months ago, or was told, that this was to the same caliber as the Spider-Man ride and Transformers ride in Universal. So yeah, you can imagine a theme park with maybe a little less money than a Disney or Universal park trying to keep up that ride.
I would argue that if this ride were to open today, they would have had a much easier time maintaining it.
Probably.
Because Busch Gardens, it started with SeaWorld, right? And then it became Busch Gardens, and then they started, building parks elsewhere.
Well, I don't actually know if that's the history.
Well, as a company, because I think Busch Gardens Williamsburg was established as its own.
Yes, I think it was bought by.
But it was bought out by SeaWorld. Yeah, I may have jumped a couple steps in explaining, but yeah, I'm aware of the fact that Busch Gardens started out as its own thing, and then SeaWorld and Busch kind of merged after one acquired the other.
Curse of Dark Castle opened in 2005, so
yes.
It
wasn't old.
Yeah.
it was a low capacity, high intensity, high investment dark ride.
Yeah.
And we came so close to being able to get on it for the first time. We went to Busch Gardens together for the first time in 2021. I had been as a child only once, as far as I'm aware. So you're not too far off in when I went in 2021, everything was new to me. There was virtually nothing there that I had experienced there as a child. Not nothing, but virtually nothing. Curse of Dark Castle definitely wasn't there when I was a child. When I went in 2021, the husk, the building, the castle facade, which is amazing.
And we walked by it and we were like, what's this?
Yeah.
And the sign was gone. There was nothing there because it had been dead for the ride had already been
right.
gone for 4 years.
They'd not actually announced that it was gone, but they had already peeled all of the theming elements off of it. So they knew in their hearts that it was gone. And we knew as soon as we started asking around, like, it's probably never coming back. This is something that there are POVs of this. I have seen this. And it does look like it was one of the top tier dark rides. And outside of a Disney Universal Park, you just don't get a lot of dark rides in North America.
Nope.
Which hurts because dark rides are like part of the themed experience at any given theme park. If you don't have a dark ride or two, you don't have a theme park, you have an amusement park. But the dark ride that was here is going to live on.
Yes.
It was too, as far as we're aware, what's been published and the rumors that have been flying around, Curse of Dark Castle was too expensive to maintain at a low capacity, and honestly, it seemed like interest was tapering off in the ride and it was becoming harder to maintain. So they did shut the doors in 2017. But this May,
in like a week and a half,
we're going to be riding its spiritual successor, and not just a spiritual successor in the abstract sense, but it is like literally a sequel to Curse of Dark Castle. Props to Busch Gardens for preserving the legacy of this attraction. The narrative here is like King Ludwig imprisons you in his castle and you kind of ride the curse out on the dark ride. What happens on the new attraction, which some of you may know, is called the Dark Coaster.
Escape the Storm.
Escape the Storm is the subtitle. You're escaping the curse that's been laid on you several years prior.
And
so from 2017
riding little
to 2023, the implication is you've been stuck in the castle
for 5 years.
For all that time under the curse of King Ludwig, and now you're escaping the castle on your little snowmobile. And it's a roller coaster. It's an indoor roller coaster. We don't know what to expect, but we've been told there are dark ride scenes. There's thematic elements. We have signed our names in the queue, which was a pretty cool perk of being a Busch Gardens Platinum member. So if you see us, please shout us out.
Tim wrote us this big.
You'll have to look. I made it difficult.
So tiny.
They told us to write small.
So Tim wrote ant-sized.
I wrote
Tim
small.
Shrunk himself
I'm a
down
good listener. Don't hate me for following the rules.
He wrote on it. So
we're in there somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know where they're going to put that up. They said it was going to be on display in the queue.
Yeah.
So if you see stained glass window, look through it. Somewhere in there is a Tim and Katie signature that marks our contribution to the Busch Gardens Society. But this ride, as it was, has been lost. The spiritual successor opens in a week, and we are excited to see what that is. We'll see whether or not it was a worthy replacement of the actual attraction. Yeah. I'm always going to miss not having been able to ride this, but I think if Dark Coaster scratches that itch for me, it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I am always going to miss like a dark ride dying and being replaced by a coaster, because I love both, but yeah,
But coasters are plentiful and dark rides are few.
Yeah, good dark rides.
Good dark rides.
I don't mean just putting me on a little thing and putting some cardboard things up.
Oh, you're going after Kennywood, are you?
A little bit.
Old Mill at Kennywood is a really cute little ride, but it's low budget.
I was more referring to like the Garfield version.
Well, that too. All right. So this one is going to freak a lot of Disney people out.
So if you don't recognize this rather horrific image that Tim decided to pull.
It was the one that came up.
That
was one of the first ones that came up.
One of the final scenes from the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour in Disney, Tokyo Disneyland.
Not Disney Sea, Disneyland. Inside the actual castle.
This was a walkthrough tour that you could take inside the castle. It opened in 1986 and actually stayed open through 2006. It actually stayed open longer than I thought, 20 years. And it was a walkthrough attraction that you had this cast member who was a tour guide, and they started you out with, oh, these are the princesses, and this is, what they did, and then basically villains take over, and you end up like seeing, I think, Maleficent and
The Horn King.
The Horn King was the final boss, and the Horn
Final
King,
boss.
the Horn King is from the
Black Cauldron.
not well-known movie Black Cauldron, or not well-received movie Black Cauldron, which, if you ever read the Black Cauldron books, you would probably appreciate that movie a little bit more. But honestly, like, the Horn King was one of the best parts of that movie. He was done so well, and he's super, super scary.
As is the animatronic.
He had, and I would have loved to have seen his animatronic. He is kind of a very devilish looking character, and that Black Cauldron basically creates an army of the dead. So it's definitely a darker side of Disney. But honestly, I feel like this attraction, if it opened now, people would
lose their minds,
because everyone loves Disney villains now. Like, they've always loved Disney villains, but now they're like, if we're talking about making a whole villain kingdom, and
that's what I was gonna say, though, because that concept was pitched as a blue sky concept, and apparently, I can't throw my weight behind Disney for how they ran D23 last year. It was kind of a mess. But what they seem to have done is they seem to have, instead of using it as a ground for announcing new things, they seem to use it as a gauge for how crowds were going to flow to their blue sky concepts. So the things that were reacted to not as well, you may never see actually happen. But the Villain's Kingdom was one of the big things that, like, they've mentioned since, like, we had no idea it was going to be that popular. We are paying attention. And now I think if anything is going to happen as a Magic Kingdom expansion, it's going to be Villain's Kingdom. They could throw away Coco Land and Encanto Land if they're not as popular, but they're going to keep Villain's Kingdom in the back of their minds. So this could happen again.
I don't know if it will. It was replaced with Cinderella Fairy Tale Hall, which I think is a walkthrough very, very reminiscent of the walkthrough in Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland. It features, I think it's just more like Cinderella rather than Sleeping Beauty, and it features like the glass slipper and things like that. But I would have loved to have done this. I wouldn't have even cared, because it was all in Japanese, because it's in Tokyo Disneyland and your tour guide is speaking Japanese. And I wouldn't have cared. I would have just been like, this is amazing. Look at the villains. Look at the Horn King animatronic. I'm
pretty good at knowing when I'm being threatened in whatever language it is.
Yeah. And then at the end, it was a happy ending. Like, I remember seeing history videos, or like walkthroughs, I guess, of it, where, you know, the power of love and magic defeats the bad guys and stuff like that. But it ran for 20 years. I guess it was considered too scary, and they eventually closed it. But man, I would have definitely done this.
Too much at the Disney parks is shut down for being too scary.
Yeah,
in my opinion. That's just in general. Like, I mean, that goes for where they revamped Dinosaur to make it less scary, and even elements of the Great Movie Ride were tapered down because they were considered too scary. But a lot of things that are in Disneyland or at Disney World and Disneyland considered to be too scary back then for the demographic they were trying to hit.
I mean, I think Tower of Terror is pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely don't want them to tone it down.
Let's be realistic about the modern day. I mean, Disney adults is kind of a derogatory term used in day-to-day context today. But I would argue that Disney adults are actually comprising more of Disney's annual revenue at the parks today than families, than small kids.
Could be.
Because the way they've been driving prices up, you know who they're trying to target. Like, it becomes kind of obvious who they're trying to reach out to with these. And the legacy concepts don't appear because they're so appealing to kids, too. That's nostalgia for the adults. That's to draw the adults back in.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you think like a group of, you know, ladies or anyone on a fun trip, you know, that are all adults and paying their way. Yeah, they can spend a lot more money in Disney than like the family of four that bring sandwiches to the park because it's too expensive to eat there.
And I do want to say too, before we move on from this, like, I'm not advocating that Disney go in a direction that's so dark that it can't be appealing for everyone.
I would just say that they should be more willing to experience with some more want to use the word mature, making it sound like it needs to be adult, but more.
I think they've been dipping their toe into more thrill-oriented rides recently with
Yeah.
Tron and Guardians, and they've been very well received. So I think we'll see a shift towards appealing more to the adult demographic, which could mean things like in the Villain's Kingdom, you might have something. I think it's a far bridge to cross, but I think you could have something like Halloween Horror Nights happen more logistically sound, or in a more logistically sound way at a place like Villain's Kingdom, as opposed to Mickey's Not So Scary, which has always been the staple of the Disney parks.
Yeah.
Anyway, this isn't all about Disney, and we weren't trying to make it that, but this is one attraction that I think was a casualty of trying to appeal to a younger demographic.
Yeah.
And
that was in Japan.
The adult demographic is not pleased.
Imagine them putting this in the, like the California or Florida park and it not lasting longer than like 5 years, maybe. The fact that it lasted 20 years in Japan is honestly pretty impressive. Anyway, I'm sad. Would love to see it brought back in some way. And I would love to know what happened to this Horn King animatronic, because he was gorgeous.
This is also not the last time we'll talk about a Disney attraction that was too scary. But before that, we have a couple. We have a couple honor roll. Yeah, retro FOMO is what I decided to call this, because fear of missing out is technically forward-facing, but I'm afraid I've already missed it.
Yes, we're afraid that we missed these things.
So these, I know we said we were going to rank the top 10. We've mostly done that, but what we're doing here is throwing out, I think, 4 more that are like in the back of our minds is, it hurts.
We won't go into much detail about them. Although we're not doing so bad for time right now.
This is the only one on the list that is an international destination, because we didn't learn about this ride until it was already gone.
Yeah.
And I'm devastated.
Which is really, oh my god.
Technically, it's still there.
Yes.
Technically, it's still operating there, but it is not as it is in this image, which is, this is like the only image. I tried, guys. I tried to find a better image. This is it. This is Temple of the Nighthawk at Phantasialand, or Phantasialand, as some people prefer to call it. I think it's the UK interpretation of the term. It's located in Germany. It is currently Crazy Bats, a VR roller coaster, which is the literal worst thing you can do to a roller coaster, is add VR. That's not to say I'm not going to do it when we eventually make it there, if it's still standing, because it might not be.
But he's going to be looking.
Yeah, I'm going to be like frowny face the whole time. The reason, so Temple of the Nighthawk was its second iteration, right?
Yes.
This coaster originally opened as Space Coaster, which was an obvious, and it was like themed, very obvious knockoff of Space Mountain at the Disney park. Just like utterly, unabashedly ripoff. But it was rethemed to Temple of the Nighthawk a little while later, and what came of that, most notably, was this kind of cool, overgrown station, but also a roller coaster largely in the dark with the coolest music you could possibly imagine. I actually downloaded it because I was worried that it was eventually going to be taken offline, and I have it stored, and I literally have it on
all the time, and was like, can't wait to ride this one day. Can't wait to ride this one day.
Yeah,
and like,
it hurt.
I guess like 2 years ago or so, I just hear him go like, no! And he's like, I'm like, what? He's like, Temple of the Nighthawk is gone.
It's Crazy Bats now.
Anyway. Yeah.
This is one of these, if you've been following Tim and Katie for a while, you'll know that like we are all about theme park music and on-ride soundtracks. So whenever that's an element, I'm like, I don't care what it is, I gotta ride it. Even if it's a Rapids ride, I will ride it if it has a good soundtrack. That's how immersed I am and invested I am in music.
Put a kick-ass song on Popeyes and you'll get Tim.
Still $1,000 to ride. I will ride that for $1,000 and not a penny less. Anyway, Temple of the Nighthawk had the coolest soundtrack. I can't spend any more time on this because we do have more to go through. But it did, like, that was what made me want to be like, even if it's the roughest, rattliest ride, I gotta ride it. And now there's no.
Now it's Crazy Bats, Crazy Bats.
I don't think that's the actual song.
No, it's not. That's all I can think of.
Phantasialand is an amazing place. We do want to get there someday. It's like actually at the tippy top of our bucket list for international trips, but it is on the list.
Oh yeah, Embrace have a good one. Yep, Jolly Rancher remix
Yeah.
on right soundtrack.
It does have a good. That's what got me on, man.
Yep.
It has a good on-ride soundtrack now, and the music follows you around the loop. It's insane. I love it.
Multiple songs.
And there's multiple songs. You got to ride it multiple times to get the good ones. Tim helped me track down all the different soundtracks for the Jolly Rancher remix. It's a various artists compilation, and I just kind of made my own playlists. But now I listen to that too. Don't get too excited, Kaylee. Unless you know someone at Universal Creative, then you can get excited.
Put a kick-ass song on Popeyes. I don't know. There could be a song on Popeyes. It's probably like next one.
20,000
is a Nautilus.
Yeah, this ride technically still exists at Tokyo Disney Sea, but it is a more modern version of what we had.
It's not. Yeah, it's a version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but it is not this mechanism. I believe it's not the submarines. It doesn't actually go underwater. It fakes you out. I think in Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
So these ones did.
Well, kind of. It does not actually submerge.
Okay.
It does have water around you so that you can see, but yeah, it's
okay.
this actual mechanism still exists at Disneyland too, as
the submarine, but they never looked like the Nautilus. I did some research. That ride was never ever themed to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was always a submarine adventure ride. It's that, so it wasn't. They always looked like that, and then when it became Nemo, the submarines kind of stayed submarines. But this was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We're in a Nautilus, and I think they're pretty cool looking.
Yeah,
I actually enjoy the Nemo submarine voyage ride more than I remembered doing. Like the second time we went on, I was like, oh, this is actually cooler than I remembered it being in like 2018. So.
No such thing. Nothing's that waterproof. Certainly not me.
Anyway, this would have been fun to see. I think it's. I love looking at like old Disney videos where you can see the lagoon and how beautiful it was. And I think it was totally leveled, filled in, and now is part of. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, right?
Yep.
The Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is on. So I can imagine it being like a really cool centerpiece of the.
That whole lagoon is gone now. We do have a new mountain coaster to replace it, but you won't see many attractions like this outside of the Disney parks. And
you can find the image of a Nautilus in the Little Mermaid Dark Ride queue.
Yep.
So they did pay.
They always do.
Somewhere.
Speaking of Disney, I actually did experience this. This is the Yeti on Expedition Everest. He still stands to this very day, but standing is all he's ever going to do.
B mode, and
he's only operated in B mode since basically like 3 months after the park, or the ride, not the park, the ride.
The ride of it. I tried to find the date that it was actually operating in A mode, and all the information just says a couple of months later. So the ride opened in 2000. I put 2006 to 2006 because it didn't operate for more than a few months.
Yeah.
So the ride opened in 2006. You got to go.
I got to experience this ride when it was new, and I honestly it had been so long since I'd been to Disney or even cared to think about Disney that I didn't know it was new. But we went on it, and the Yeti used to reach for you. It used to not just stand there as you dip down in Expedition Everest, which if you're not familiar with the ride, it takes you through the Forbidden Mountain, and it takes you straight through the tunnel. And at the end of it, it flips the track, and you go backwards, then you go forwards again. And when you go forwards, you get this encounter with a Yeti. Now, right now, it's a strobe light, as Jamie and Ari say. It's Disco Yeti. That's what we all call it in the Disney circuit. So it doesn't move, but the strobe light gives the appearance of movement because you move and you duck underneath of it. And that's, I think, a fair compromise given what happened. But what happened was it was designed to reach for you and grab at you. And that was the single most terrifying roller coaster
vertical and horizontal movement
I had ever been on. It was so terrifying to see that thing reach at you as you were getting closer by force of motion. it didn't work for long because the base of the Yeti cracked.
It was so heavy.
Once the Yeti was a huge investment, and it was so heavy that the base underneath of it cracked. Now it's not going to fall; it's fine where it is, but
they're afraid to turn it back on.
They're afraid to turn it back on, and to get at it and fix it would require tearing apart the mountain itself, which would be a probably year or two worth of work, during which Expedition Everest would be down. And it's one of the tentpole attractions at Animal Kingdom right now.
And it undergoes refurbishment like it needs to, every year or so, and it's never going to get fixed unless if...
My hope was that when a new attraction, like a big new tentpole attraction similar to Pandora, was to open at Animal Kingdom, which now we know would have been probably the Moana attractions that are supposedly coming, they would have had the crowd control in place to tear down Expedition Everest and finally fix it. But before that happened, Joe Rohde, the Imagineer who pledged to fix it and designed it, is gone. He's no longer part of the Disney staff. So if he comes back in the next year, my hopes are going to be sky high that that's going to be first on his agenda. But
I was kind of hoping when Bob Iger came back that he'd be like, Rohde, come back.
I mean, there's a couple people that have come back since Iger's been back. So nothing's entirely off the board, but I don't think this one's going to get fixed.
I don't think it's going to get fixed. It's still a really awesome roller coaster. And we were talking about, higher thrill attractions that Disney has made. I'm really glad it exists. Would have been nice to see the moving Yeti, but I will take Disco Yeti over
nothing.
Nothing.
So this one is super nerdy.
This
is not even at a theme park.
No one is going to know what this is.
But it was, believe it or not, owned and operated by Cedar Fair.
Yeah.
Which is the strangest thing I've ever heard.
Well, they had a deal with Paramount.
They did. So this was...
That's why you had the board.
Mm-hmm. This was concept art for the Star Trek experience, or Star Trek The Experience, which ran in Las Vegas as it was a standalone building. It was a marketplace. They had Deep Space Nine as a restaurant.
They had Quarks bar.
They had Quarks bar inside. They had this is concept art when it was originally pitched, because this was the highest resolution image I could find for the show. But they actually had the Enterprise, like the Enterprise D from Next Generation, and Voyager hanging from a constellation overhead. This basically was like the Rainforest Cafe of Star Trek. It was like absolute home for a bunch of nerds like us. Unfortunately, we didn't find out about it until long after it had closed. So it was never going to be a destination that we could actually reach.
It opened in 1998 and it closed in 2008. There was some talk of maybe it moving somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Maybe reopening again, because the Star Trek movie with starring Chris Pine came out in 2009, so they thought maybe the hype for the new movie may bring people back, but unfortunately that never came through.
Well, interestingly, Star Trek has never been more popular than it is right now because of the reunion of the Next Generation cast. They did the Picard spin-off show, which is a sequel series set many, many, many years later, because obviously they're all much older. And I've seen enough of it. I've been trying to avoid spoilers because we're desperately trying to catch up so we can watch everything in canonical order. But did I add an extra syllable?
Canonical.
But I've seen enough of it to know, and I've read enough reviews to know that it has hyped up the Star Trekkies more than anything has in the last 2 decades. So I think when we came across this, it was operating as a Voyager theme, like Star Trek Voyager, the show. It had basically as a 4D ride experience. There would be walkthrough area. It was much like Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, it was like Rise of the Resistance, but without the final trackless ride portion.
Yeah.
Picture everything else leading up to it, because you had actors, and they were not just cast members who were tired of doing this all day, every day. They were actors who were hired.
Deeply committed.
Yeah.
They had.
And they're giving you a tour, and Borg attack, and the Borg look just like movie TV show level
You could
makeup
literally be
done.
assimilated walking around. By the way, if y'all don't watch Star Trek, this is not making any sense, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But this is deeply hurtful that we can't go to experience this
Like,
today. As like,
I would give Galaxy's Edge to do this, and I know
I
that's-
would genuinely,
that
yeah.
is blasphemous to Star Wars people, and for Star Wars people, I'm glad you have Galaxy's Edge. I'm confused about the Star Cruiser, but I think you are too.
This is like the nerdiest thing about us
Yeah.
is the fact that we are a little bit Trekkie.
Yeah, I'm
But-
pretty much.
You're pretty much a Trekkie at this point.
Yeah.
But this is a really cool experience that we're never probably going to have again.
No.
There are Star Trek attractions at overseas parks. There's actually a
Yes.
roller coaster where you can walk. The cube takes you through the bridge of the Enterprise and all of that, which is something that we very much like to do
Yeah.
someday.
There used
but
to be-
this was in our home continent.
Yeah, this was in Vegas.
This was done well,
And
and
there-
there is like a POV, like a full experience
Yeah,
POV
which
that we
I
watched all the way
watched
through, and it was
cried
pretty
at the
good.
end because I was like, dang, that was really good. I probably would have cried. Anyway, that's something we're missing. I did thank you, Kaylee. I
Also,
mean,
Treasure Planet is one of our favorite movies.
needs- yeah.
Like not just like Disney movies or animated movies,
Oh.
like movies. It's one of our favorite movies.
Trailing back because I know that Treasure Planet and Atlantis are not the same, but they got kind of the same treatment from Disney. There was a rumor that the Nautilus, 20,000 Leagues, would
Mhm.
become a Atlantis ride, which would have been pretty cool.
It would have been pretty cool.
But
But
because
Atlantis
that movie did
underperformed.
so poorly, they axed it, and I was like, dang, that would have been cool. Anyway, but yeah, Treasure Planet's awesome, and it deserves way more credit.
You kind of have to assume that even if it had been that, it would be gone now.
Probably.
So I think with that one, we are
We're
up
down
against
to-
our number one. So this is
Sorry, we
where
missed it.
this is where we are going to circle back to Disney one more time to close it all out. If you've been following along with our thought patterns, you might be able to guess what
That's
this one is going to be.
yeah.
And if you can't guess what this one is going to be, it's probably because you never heard of it and didn't know it existed. Not exactly the promotional material you think about when you think about Walt Disney
The
World.
most magical place on earth.
Answer the
Don't-
call.
Don't eat my face.
So, this is
Extraterrestrial.
terrestrial. I was gonna say you wrote that down right.
That's what it's called.
The extraterrestrial alien encounter, which was later replaced by Stitch's Great Escape, neither of which we experienced. But Stitch's Great Escape is probably not the one I would have chosen to experience between the two.
Yeah.
This was an actual thing. It was an actual show that happened daily, hourly in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland. And
It's
the
Theater in the round experience.
yeah, the actual this I mean the what you call it, the harnesses. Like
Oh yeah.
it looks like something out of a Saw movie. Like it genuinely looks terrifying just from the promo art. And I know that it's probably not as terrifying in real life, or
Yeah.
wouldn't have been as it would have been
No, thank you, but no.
to think about it in the abstract sense now. But it was a real thing that Disney did
Yeah.
at the Magic Kingdom. And it
Yes.
ran for a while.
Yeah, it opened in 94 and it closed in 2003. So that was a little less than 10 years. I would have loved to have done it. As a child, would I have loved it? Probably not. It probably would have terrorized me if things like, Scar in the Puppet Show and Poseidon from Poseidon's Fury OG terrified me. But as a teenager or an adult, I think it would have been a lot of fun.
Oh, they got to experience Stitch. We didn't even get to experience Stitch.
I will say this conversation came up
Ugh.
because I've heard the chili cheese dog burp was not remembered fondly from Stitch's Great Escape, but I would have loved to have seen Stitch's animatronic though. I think that would have been really cool. And I would have loved to have seen this gigantic alien animatronic that apparently terrorized people for like 20 minutes. Like, if I remember correctly, like you're supposed to be seeing some sort of scientific whatever, and
it goes right in line with the
escapes.
Star Trek experience,
Yeah.
honestly. Like it
was definitely like a sci-fi.
It was the love
Ridley
child
Scott.
of the Haunted Mansion and Star Trek. It's basically what it was. Like it's actually not that far away from Star Tours in the sense of like you're being guided around a scientific facility. You're here to witness some kind of scientific miracle and something goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
It's basically Frankenstein's story, but as an alien adventure.
Yeah.
And what happened, I mean, it was a 4D experience, not unlike A Bug's Life at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, I'm thinking like
things would poke and prod you in your seat.
A Bug's Life and the Honey I Shrunk the Kids 4D adventure.
Yeah, and the animatronic at the center was supposedly a sight to be remembered, and we'll never know what it looked like.
Yeah.
Because it's not captured well. Like, this thing faded out before video technology really
no
evolved
one had like phones in their
to
pockets
the point of being able to
record.
capture actual solid footage. This animatronic does exist somewhere, though. It's in cold storage. They did not destroy it.
I
So,
need to see this somewhere.
So, someday, I would love... Maybe Villain's Kingdom.
Remember this from your childhood?
They put the Horn King in, and then at the
Yeah,
end of the
that's
walkthrough,
where
just the
it's-
alien bursts through the glass.
The alien and the Horn King get put in Villain's Kingdom. I'm down for that.
This was Disney's... I would say this is Disney's early foray into the Halloween Horror Nights. I think this was, as I said, like the love child of Haunted Mansion and Star Trek. I think this was them seeing the success of the Haunted Mansion and the popularity of the Haunted Mansion at multiple parks, and then saying we could do something like this at Tomorrowland and have it be really cool and more of an adult experience.
I feel like it was 25 years too soon.
Yes, exactly.
If they built
now,
it
if you do it today, it would be so popular. It would be like very controversial because parents would hate it. But parents, as they say, I don't think they make up the majority of the Disney going audience anymore.
Well,
I think Disney adults are like the base of the revenue cycle.
That there's not plenty to do with your kid. It's not like you show up to, whatever park and there's like only 4 rides for the kid. There's so much to do with your kid. You're not going to make it through all of them because you've got to take breaks to go pee and eat and all that stuff. But, some of us older kids want to go get scared by an alien.
What hurts me about this is that it didn't have to stay open as the extraterrestrial experience. It could have stuck around as Stitch. And I would have enjoyed the Stitch show fine. But
and the thing is, if the biggest complaint about the chili cheese dog burp, take out that effect.
But here's what I'm trying to get to is they have no business closing down Stitch's Great Escape and leaving the Monsters Inc. laugh floor across the hall.
That's right, yeah.
Like, there's no discernible reason why that can stay, but Stitch gotta go because it's not popular. You think Monsters Inc. laugh floor is like drawing the audiences that...
It is weird that like
Space
Alien
Mountain
Encounter
does.
closed in 2003 and then Stitch technically was operating until 2018, but it operated like after like 10 years, it operated seasonally.
Yeah.
And then they literally just never even, I think it actually technically the last show was in like 2017, but they just never operated it again. And it's the husk of it is still there.
Yeah.
Like the Stitch animatronic is gone. I wonder where that is. But it's like, why? Like, I understand like staffing and operating costs and things like that. But if you're going to take it out, do something with it. I don't know. Like, what is it? Right now, it's like a pop-up Tron store.
No, it's not. That was a one-time thing.
Oh.
They only so if you watch Jackie's vlog from the opening day of Tron, super enthused, she and Sam went through the extended queue line for the Tron pop-up shop. They opened 2 pop-up shops for Tron merch that day because they were worried that the capacity for the actual Tron shop wouldn't accommodate the hype. So they wove people through different lines to different destinations. And the destination that Sam and Jackie were woven to was the Stitch's Great Escape husk. And they haven't changed any of the theming. Like Katie said, like it's all still there. The animatronic is gone, but the actual theming of the area is all still
like
Stitch.
Apparently there's still
Hasn't
like
been
TV
touched.
screens and stuff.
Has not been touched since 2018. So that was one. Like they only did that one time. It's closed now. Like they moved all of the merch back to the actual Tron shop. It's no longer a pop up, and they could do that again for like, I don't know, not so scary if they need like a Halloween
waste
candy
that
destination.
whole area just to do like pop-up shops sometime.
Yeah, I think this is an underutilized space, and I have to wonder what.
Bring back extraterrestrial.
I have to wonder what the Imagineers are thinking about for this space, and I hope that it doesn't require an overhaul of all Tomorrowland to fit their next modern design. But I will always regret that we didn't get to experience the extraterrestrial. Like, if I could go back in time and experience one thing, this would be it.
Yeah, probably.
That's
I
why it's our
remember
top.
singing ads for this as a kid too.
Yeah, me too. This was on our Disney VHS tapes, and it all actually came up with like a warning before it transitioned to that piece, like this might be too scary for small children, as like a little subtitle. And I was like, ooh. So, and that's the kind of guy I grew up to be. So I will miss this attraction.
Fascinated by scary things.
There's stuff we didn't mention tonight. Stuff like Rivers of Light at Animal Kingdom that's gone and lost forever.
I mean, I kind of stayed away from shows that look nighttime spectaculars because I feel like you could probably do a live stream on our favorite nighttime spectaculars.
Well, and also I will say those shows are never truly gone forever because they often bring back variants of those old shows. The Happily Ever After is running again right now at Magic Kingdom, which is terrific because it's a well-loved show. We loved it. We were sad to see it go.
It didn't get a fair shake.
It did not get a fair shake. It only got a short run. And then Epcot Forever is back again. Like, you'll never truly see the end of some of these shows, but things like the Osborne Lights was something that Chad and Vanessa brought up, and they weren't able to be here tonight because they're off doing fun things of their own. But I know that a lot of people agree with them about things like Illuminations, the Osborne Lights.
Osborne Lights is a good one to bring up.
So there's always going to be like more stuff. Like in looking back on things that we've experienced or didn't experience and would love to have experienced.
I'll mention one more that we did experience that I will miss in some way. The whip at Hershey Park.
The whip is gone.
The whip is gone, and even though it was so loud and it will be much quieter over there, I will miss it.
And the roller soaker that Tim brings up for Hershey Park, that was something I also never got to experience. I was there when it was there, but I never
got to ride it.
I never walked into the water park. I didn't even get to see it. I never walked into the water park.
I remember watching it when I think I was there for like a band trip or something. We did like music in the parks there.
And Volcanic Vertical at King's Dominion was another thing we never got to experience. There's always going to be more. Yeah. Like, this is a never-ending list. As long as we're going to theme parks, there's going to be more attractions that cave to time or to lack of popularity or high budget. And we just have to kind of ride the waves and enjoy what comes next. But these are some of our top attractions that we truly enjoy and that we have never really stopped missing, even if we never experienced it to begin with. So if you enjoyed this walk down memory lane, the best way to experience these attractions, if you can't get there yourself, I botched that. If you can't get there to experience them yourself, the best way to experience these attractions is vicariously through adventures like ours and our friends in the community, the theme park community. Yes. So we thank you for tuning in tonight and walking down memory lane with us. Thank you
for indulging in nostalgia with us.
Yeah, this is actually just kind of a rant. Fun rant, though. 1 hour and 37-minute rant about things we missed. Hey, but yes, it's a lot of fun too.
That's not bad timing for
us. It's not. Tonight's creator shout out, or spotlight rather, I wanted to highlight not necessarily small creators, but creators that kind of inspired this train of thought, that kind of helped energize our passion for theme park history. So Expedition Theme Park, you all should know, as Sam walks around sometimes with Jackie affixed to him. But he's primarily known for the work he does on unearthing theme park history, and he's really, really good and presents it in a really fun way. If nothing else, it is the perfect background ambiance for like
It's just
doing a project. Like,
so nice to listen to.
yeah, you could they don't even have to be videos. You could just listen to them in the background and it would be so intoxicating. But the videos are very, very detailed and really fun to watch. And they do help inspire a next generation of people who are passionate about theme parks. So definitely check him out. He's got all the socials. Defunct Land is one that I honestly like. I bounce back and forth between Expedition Theme Park and Defunct Land for like my theme park history. Defunct Land doesn't just do theme parks. They also do like toys and comic book fads and other things that might have kind of cross-pollinated with the fandoms of theme parks and adventures. But they have a lot of depth for their theme park content, and we do watch Defunct Land all the time. Sometimes we forget and tune out for like 5 months, and then we go back, and then we're on like a Defunct Land binge. But it's that fun to
Related
watch.
videos.
Same with Justin Scard, who was one of the first YouTubers we ever started following and watched religiously. We do still watch him pretty regularly. We haven't watched any of the, like the really recent stuff.
Yeah.
Just because we've been so busy ourselves.
Still, you know, I love seeing what he's doing.
Yeah, Random Land Adventures is his brand, but his channel and all his socials are Justin Scard, and he's really, really passionate about the history of the parks.
Exactly. So he's definitely, during the pandemic, I enjoyed his like retro Disneyland videos where he used footage from, I guess, his parents, and he had listeners or viewers send in whatever video they had of Disneyland, and he would go basically like start like piecing, oh, this is where this used to be, and it's very, very cool. So if you enjoy a walk through time, Justin.
And same with Justin in terms of like how he approaches parks and history. Like, it's not just Disney and it's not just parks. He goes through the history of all kinds of tourist attractions and other theme parks outside of Disney and Universal. But he's really, really good at presenting it to you in a fun, imaginative, and accessible way. So all of these creators are some of our favorites on the tube at the moment. But definitely check them out if you haven't. I'm sure everyone's heard of at least one of them. Yes. You should check out the other two. For the next live stream, I am sad to say, for those of you who do not know already, most people do, but those of you who do not know already, we will not be attending Field of Screams Halfway to Halloween event this Saturday. If you are local to Pennsylvania or the surrounding area, we highly, highly recommend that you do, because it is a super fun event. We actually had other plans already booked before we realized what day that event was going to be. So the next time we get together, we're not going to be talking about Field of Screams exclusively, but we are going to be talking about all the different things that we have planned for a very, very, very busy fall season. Spooky season is going to be on us in a heartbeat. I'm already excited. So we already have our entire September and October booked. Don't ask about hanging. It's already too late. But we are super excited to talk about all the things we have planned. And until then, guys, thank you again for joining us. It's been a fun walk down memory lane. Until next time, I'm Tim.
I'm Katie.
And every night
is a new adventure.
We'll see you again soon. Bye.